Well, thanks guys for joining us on an episode of Split Screen. I got myself, Harabek, Chopper116, got Bladesman, and #Stephanie playing some Apex.
Hi, sorry.
And a lot going on
Too much.
all over the country. And with Mixer.
And with Mixer, yeah. It's precisely nothing is going on with Mixer anymore now.
We'll get along beautifully. Just
That's
don't touch
crazy. They're really out of the blue, you know?
Yeah. It's not at all that you predicted it several weeks ago when we talked about it.
I mean, there's predicting the downfall of Mixer, right? There's not downfalling or predicting the speed at which they stopped it, as well as the partnership with Facebook Gaming. Like all of this was, I mean, it's kind of nuts.
For anyone not really familiar with everything that's been going on, so I think a lot of people are just kind of concerned. Oh man, that there's kind of accusations of racism up in Mixer's company, and there's like a Twitter user Millie who recounts just their experience, and that kind of lit a firestorm.
Well, that was quick.
Yeah, we died pretty fast. Yeah, and then fairly quickly, like almost as soon as things blew up with Mixer and just these accusations of, institutional racism at the company, Microsoft came in and said like, hey, we are no longer going to be supporting Mixer. I don't know the exact verbiage, but it's just like, we're not moving forward with Mixer. Everyone is kind of released from the contracts to go back to Twitch, but hey, you should check out Facebook Gaming.
Yeah.
It'll
Which
be
I
better for
stop
everyone.
getting ads for now.
Right. But everyone's like saying that was the cause for Mixer's downfall, when I think like we've had conversations where Mixer was dying anyway.
Yeah, I think it was more of a Microsoft saw its opportunity to offload this thing with good reason. And from what I've heard, I've listened to a few people that were actually from the Mixer community talk about it. One of our friends is actually larger in it too. And just from what I've heard there, it blindsided all of them just as much. And there was even a lot of people saying it's like, well, why did you have to destroy our channels or destroy these things in order to save that? Why couldn't have you just addressed these issues within the company?
Where's the fun in that?
Right,
Yeah.
They could have just fired the person that actually said the racist thing. There was no need to shut it down. That was just an excuse.
Well, no, that was the tip of the iceberg kind of thing. I think they were already looking to shut it down.
For sure. I think that, like, obviously with anything, like with these big companies, Microsoft, Facebook, like these deals are not like done in a day's time, right? This has probably been in the works for weeks. I imagine that the allegations about the inherent racism in management at Mixer exasperated it, and Microsoft was like, oh, this is a huge PR nightmare, obviously, because it's awful. What was said in that story, and so they're like, we need to cut ship now, otherwise Facebook is probably going to counter offer and be like, hey, you guys have this huge PR thing, like it's not worth the original deal that we were looking at. We need more money from you guys or something like that.
Yeah.
So
it was a this is the best price we're gonna get for it right now.
for sure,
Take care of it. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
And in the world of business like that, it is a sucky thing, but especially on content platforms like that, it's such a huge cost to run it, and not just for all the people to connect, but all the server space it takes up. The running costs of these things are just astronomical. So it does suck, but the second you get to cut a however many multi-million-dollar hole in your pocket out, who wouldn't take the chance?
First blood.
Do you guys feel like we have Twitch and we have Facebook Gaming? I don't even know if there's a third.
And YouTube streaming.
YouTube gaming.
Yeah, YouTube gaming. Which, from what I've heard, is a lot of people are still kind of looking to migrate that way, because they can still upload and host their own content on YouTube as well as the streams. But I've heard there's a lot of similar management issues with Twitch, not like in the racist sense, but in the sense that there's not enough feedback to the community. There's not enough response to different issues they have. Even in our conversations back then, I was never really dedicated to Mixer in any kind of way. It was more of a convenience of, I have an Xbox, I can stream to this thing very easily. That like
Right.
Microsoft account I already have. So I never really looked into the reasons why to like dedicate to one over the other in any instance.
I mean, from what I have a couple friends who started off on Mixer. Some of them transitioned to Twitch like a couple months ago, which was obviously in hindsight real lucky. But you know, I think the smaller community size was oddly enough a major draw for the streamers, right? Because it kind of allowed you to not only just grow if you were starting from zero, but also form a pretty close-knit community around games on Mixer, which is something that in their experience they weren't able to get on Twitch. And so I think it'll be tough to maybe recreate some of that magical allure that Mixer had on some of the other three remaining streaming platforms.
You know, I feel like when you guys are talking about everything, it's like other companies too are just using this to their advantage until it's not. For instance, like, you know, Starbucks, originally they were saying their employees could not even wear Black Lives Matter anything because it was too political. And then the second that they got backlash for it, they switched their mind because everybody was like, oh, when it's Pride Month, you make money off of your rainbow cups and everything else. You make money off of Pride, but Black Lives Matter isn't making you money, so you're not allowing it. And then they completely 360 because they knew it would just affect their business.
Yeah.
180.
Like, that's all that they're thinking about. And then now
they turned around to do
employees
the
are
exact
allowed to
same
wear.
thing over again.
Well, they turned around and they said, "Oh yeah, no, employees can wear Black Lives Matter."
No, I know. I was messing because you did 360 instead of 180. Like I said it too. No, and that's something you'll see a lot of. Like you saw it even in Apex as we're playing it now. They had like a Black Lives Matter icons up and stuff like that, and little mission statements about it. And I'm sure it comes from a very genuine place for all of its people, all of its individuals who work there, and everything else like that. But as a company making the statement, it can't help but feel, if not disingenuous, just making the statement so that way the business isn't affected by it. Because
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like, it's difficult for a company, not really difficult, but maybe hard for them to kind of make a stance, especially if it's not going to make them a profit. You know, like same with all the coronavirus ads. Suddenly everyone was making commercials about how they're still here for us, even though we're not buying any of their product. And Halo, like, because Pride Month had started in June, they changed their banner and their thumbnail on Facebook for Pride Month, and then they got called out because of all the George Floyd, you know, protesting, and they quickly changed their banner to the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, just for, you know, getting noticed about it.
yeah,
And then they changed it back. And I think a lot of it is just kind of in reaction to people assuming that we're going to tear down every single statue that we have and just revise history, and that revision is like always wrong. You know, when, you know, I was kind of surprised at some of the statues that were being targeted, but then when I like looked into it, I wasn't so surprised. When you kind of look at the history and like some of the statues I haven't even seen before, and then when you actually look at them, they're kind of off-putting and offensive.
Which ones are you referencing?
So the one that we started talking about originally was there is a statue in New York of Teddy Roosevelt, and it's him on horseback, and it's him depicted alongside an African American and an Indian, Native American, sorry, and it comes off as explicitly racist, putting those two races essentially below him. I don't think it was explicitly meant for that purpose, but because that's the depiction of it, and that's the history of it, that decision was made to take that one down. There was the writer of the Star Spangled Banner. That one recently came down as well, because while yes, the Star Spangled Banner is an American tradition, it's an American folk song, all that other good stuff, it was written by a slave owner.
Yeah, Francis Scott Key.
Yeah, he was also an anti-abolitionist, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever hear Fergie's version of the Star Spangled Banner?
What?
Do you remember that when Fergie sang it?
Are you talking about like at some like big sports game, Fergie completely butchered the singing of the Star Spangled Banner?
Yes. She tried to make it sexy. It was hilarious.
We never forget.
Except we always forget because there's too much to remember.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I can understand that. I have somebody that I know that's close with one of my brothers, and they are like literally to the death trying to defend all lives matter. In fact, this guy thought that he came up with it. He said, you know what? He posted this on Facebook. He said, you know what? I have an idea. What about all lives matter? So he thought he created it, first of all, which is hilarious.
That's hilarious. Does he wear masks?
He actually does, yeah. I mean, he
okay.
has
That's my
disabled
anti-argument to
kid.
that. All lives matter, yet you still run around without a mask.
Yeah, no, I mean, he definitely, like, I don't think he was malicious in any way when saying all lives matter, but even when presented with the problematic reasons behind his argument, he still defended all lives matter. That, you know,
If everyone felt as deeply for the death of an individual as they feel for someone that they loved or knew closely, we might not be having this conversation.
One of the things that Cassie and I talked about like the All Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter thing, is that like for white people, especially like poor white people, right? They get super defensive about it because they don't inherently feel, their white privilege, right? Or do they feel like they are privileged in a sense? And so I think I think it was Ryan who said it. But the defensiveness definitely does kick in hard regarding that. And so they feel like they, are probably being attacked for saying that they have this privilege that they don't necessarily experience on a day-to-day basis, or at least they don't acknowledge or recognize.
I'm poor, I'm not privileged. What are you talking about? Yeah, that argument. But like, I think it all has to come with a re-examination of yourself. And even if you aren't explicitly racist, even if you aren't explicitly against against any of these arguments or anything like that, it does come with a self-reflection. Mm-hmm. And I personally, I can out myself on a few different things. I have definitely been that person when I lived back in New Jersey, and it was not a sketchier neighborhood, but definitely a rougher area. And I've definitely been that person who's crossed the street because of someone he thought that was sketchy. Not even on the sole basis of that they were black or they were any other color or any other race, just because I felt that uneasiness. And that is a way that racism kind of manifests. I don't even want to say casually, but non-purposefully.
I think like there's a nervousness and like a guilt, and there's like a fear of violence when people kind of think about it. That's why like they want to avoid that conversation, saying like, I'm not racist or I don't feel that way, but yet, I still think all lives matter. I think part of it, I just lost it. It's just oh man.
Do you think it's more trying to separate from the worst elements of them? Like, I'm not like those guys who have the Confederate flag plastered over all their clothing, truck, whatever else. I'm not like those individuals there. Is it like a degrees of separation, you think?
I don't think it's a degrees of separation.
Don't want to disrupt the apple cart? Like, they just don't, it's sort of like a neutral sitting on the fence stance. I don't know, that's how I view it.
I think it's just like, they view it as like an attack of character, that they were raised a certain way, and if you tell them that this was racist, so they view that, no, I am not racist. It's the same idea, like if you steal something, or you do something horrible in your life, you have to admit that you did that horrible thing. But I'm going to move forward. Like, I recognize that I was a bad person and I deserve to be punished, but I want to move forward. But who I was is still part of who I am, And so like, if it's a racist, Or I'll just keep with the thief. Like if I stole $100 from Ryan, like I know that that ruined your trust, and you may never trust me again. And I need to get your trust back every single time that I see you, or even when you don't see me. I need to like show my trust. And it may be decades, that pass and I never steal again, but you still have that mistrust of me because I already broke it once. So it's like constant work.
So what do you guys think of the situation though? Because I think about this in reference to like women, right? Like I hear the stories, I keep seeing stories shared about how people say that they feel uncomfortable if some like a black
Body
person
shield
is in
here.
the elevator with
Level
them
2.
and a woman is like clutching her purse, right? You hear like that referenced a lot, and it's because of racism. So what about the end of like sexism on the other end? Because like for me, if I'm walking and I see a man in proximity and it's like later at night or the sun is down, I am automatically nervous just because he's a man. Because
I don't even think that's
historically,
necessarily sexist. I think that it pokes at your brain in the self-defense. That's what I was trying to say. Like I've been the person that crosses the street. It's not an inherently racist, sexist, whatever. That is not the intent of the action. The intent of the action is self-preservation.
so it's like blind racism though.
A little, yes. And again, you take the time, you examine that as you do go forward in your life.
But it's hard because I hear men say like, "Oh, well, not all men are like that." Or you can't assume that a man's going to be like that. And it's like it's it's not the same argument, but it sounds like that.
Yeah, how many men who aren't like that have those same tropes drilled into their head from when they were born and carry some of that, if not all of it, with them?
Yeah, like basically, do you see similarities between what I'm saying about me seeing a man, no matter his color?
We've only got a minute till the ring's right there.
I automatically feel fearful. Is that a similar vibe to somebody, man or woman, who sees like a black person in the elevator with them and then like clutches onto their purse? Like, is there similarities or is it completely different? Because the arguments, like, it is completely different, but the arguments sound the same.
I mean, like from my perspective, I've definitely been on the other end where I'm in an area or walking down a street and people have crossed the street when they see me or they feel uncomfortable when I'm in the room, and I feel like it's my not responsibility, but I feel obligated to make myself feel or appear as non-threatening as possible, or just not be in that situation so that the other person feels comfortable. And I don't have a great answer for it. My answer right now is just like I feel like there's more of a risk for me personally because the law is going to be against me. Like
Yeah.
the law is going to make an assumption against me, but then there's still a very real risk about like your safety or a woman's safety. And it's not like it's just made up. It does exist.
So it's kind of like your solution too, to like protect yourself. Like, I think like when I'm presented in that situation, I make sure it's known that I have my pepper spray on me, or I make sure I called you, Michael. I've called you before. Pretended like you're just around the corner, so whoever is around realizes that I'm not alone. So it's kind of like just protecting yourself. So in that situation too, you make it known that you're friendly, you're not a threat, you're crossing the street to make sure that they feel comfortable. You're really just also protecting yourself in that case, because you know what's going to happen.
Well, I don't think it's like a known that it's going to happen. I mean, it's a larger answer than I know, but I know it's if someone is like feeling threatened by me, I know that they have the security of calling for help or calling for the police, and my side, I'm going to be the last person that anyone listens to. One, it's less likely anyone's going to believe what I say. And the law, if the police show up, they're most likely not going to take my side. And I think there's an example like the Central Park, I can't remember their names, but they had the same last name, the Coopers, I think.
The Central Park
Or you
5?
see in the video, there was a woman walking her dog, and the guy asked, like, "Can you please, put your dog on a leash?" And she
Right.
threatens that the cops will come. And
Yeah,
what's even
she
worse is
said
that
it with
she
the
knows. She
yeah.
knows what that means, And it's like this. I think it's just as equally offensive for a guy to say, like, to a woman, like, "You're gonna get raped. I'm gonna make sure someone's gonna come to your house and rape you." And I
Yeah.
feel like that's the same level of intensity because you know what they're afraid of, and you're trying to leverage that against them. And I don't know what the answer is. Like, if you feel uncomfortable walking down the street and you see someone and you don't know what their intention is, like, you need to do whatever you can to protect yourself and just be smart and make sure that you're safe. But at the same time, like, does that make you a racist? No, I don't think so, because you're not you're not going to be yelling at them to leave you alone and threaten to call the cops,
Yeah.
if they're not doing
If you
it,
turn around and say, "Stop following me," and go that route with it, then yeah.
Well, at some point you have to think smart about it too, because for women it is really scary. I've been followed before, and if I were to turn around and yell at that person, you have no idea how they're going to react too.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of their color, obviously, like, you just don't know what they're going to say if somebody's following you.
Yeah,
So,
and oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was thinking, like, something that Michael mentioned that I think makes a slight difference is that, societally for a very long time, men have been, more in power, not correctly, but we've been in a patriarchal society for, X number of years prior. And so men for a very long time, and arguably still now, have the power, right? Whereas in the situation where Michael is talking about, he does not have the power as a black man in that encounter, and so maybe that's sort of a slight difference in that, like, you're what am I right? Not right. Justified in wanting to avoid that kind of situation.
Yeah, it's an examination of that justification and the balancing of the reasons. And in Stephanie's case, in her argument, then yes, you absolutely have at least some justification to guard yourself a little bit better. You don't have any justification to accuse that person of doing anything and telling them to get away from you, but
if someone is following you, and I've had people tell me horror stories where they go home and people would try to actually get into the house, and they'd stop because then the boyfriend or the husband was home and they didn't realize that they didn't live alone. Like, I think you have to do whatever you can to keep yourself safe. I think it stops when you then kind of do a role reversal and try and harm them. If they're like, it gets into a really gray area. If they're running away but they like hurt you or destroy property, then you do have like an obligation to like hold them accountable to what they did. But if it's like a chance encounter and then you felt uncomfortable and they end it immediately, like they recognize that they made you feel uncomfortable and they end it, then that should be kind of it. And I'm not saying, I don't have the best answer. I'm not saying like it's not the best thing to do. It's I don't know. It's just it's difficult.
Continuously re-examine your reasons for doing things, and if that examination of the reason you do things doesn't match up with what you were intending to do, change your actions accordingly from there. So
Yeah,
heavy subjects, let's maybe branch onto something else.
Oh, hear it.
It was I don't know what to branch to, because I was going to mention I don't know if you noticed or knew this, but Jenna Marbles quit YouTube.
She quit. Oh my god, I'm so sad. I love Jenna Marbles.
So the background is that, and I didn't really hear anything about, like, but people were calling out some of the more problematic, like, videos that she did in the past,
Right.
which can be construed as racist or racially insensitive, like subject material for the sake of comedy. And she, she acknowledged that those are problematic, that she kind of apologized for them a while back and apologized in this particular video that came out yesterday, again, and had taken them down already. But Essentially, she didn't want to continue to like. She phrased it better, but essentially that she apologized for the content and is not going to be making content on her channel for a while. And so, yeah, effectively, Jenna Marbles, an OG YouTuber, has quit the platform for now. Whether she comes back or not is another kind of thing up for debate. But it's an interesting story because it kind of brought up obviously problematic material, but also like cancel culture.
Yeah.
But once again, those are like all very serious topics we would want to avoid. Maybe, I don't know.
So she didn't go to a different platform. She didn't go to like Facebook or even Twitch.
No, I mean,
Instagram?
so she, her and her partner, like stream on Twitch already, and they have a podcast. So I imagine she's not going to quit those, and for a while, I feel like she's been trying to distance herself from the Jenna Marbles YouTube channel in general, just because I don't think she wants to do that. At least that's the impression I got, was that she didn't want to do the Jenna Marbles like thing anymore, but she enjoys streaming, and so I think she just wants to separate herself from that.
I'm gonna be that person. I'm trying to put a face to Jenna Marbles. I know the name. I've never watched any of the content. I'm trying to put a face to it, and I can't remember this person.
She's the one. Oh my god! Just look her up. You'll know her in like 2 seconds.
I'm sure. Yeah. For whatever reason, I keep thinking of someone who did like live streams and stuff with Toby Turner, like way back.
Do you think Jenna Marbles is also using this as a situation just to get out of it? Because you said she already seemed like she was kind of on her way out of YouTube.
Honestly, I don't like. I think, you know, based on the stuff that I've followed about Jenna Marbles, she genuinely apologized for those things in the past, and has, you know, actively worked throughout the years to improve upon herself. And honestly, the content that she was producing, you know, for the last, you know, couple years or decade even, maybe. I'm not familiar with Jenna Marbles' content that much, but her content has been definitely not as problematic as the early, like, you know, 2000s like sketch comedy that she was producing when she first started. And so there was genuine change in that regard. Whether or not she is using this as an opportunity to escape from the Jenna Marbles thing, I don't know. I think she would have been. I feel like she would have announced something generally like within the next year or so, to be honest. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when she came out, she did say like she didn't want to keep disappointing people. Like she doesn't want to make content that's gonna upset people, so she's just not gonna make content at all.
Ryan,
Yeah.
just
Oh, what's up? Oh, what's Ryan?
sorry.
He's in here with me.
This is very
You
distracting.
feeling somebody?
But yeah, I think
Target down. Your lucky day.
what was I trying to say? I think Jenna Marbles in general, like I think also this was like sort of a mental health break for her, because she's been, you know, creating content for a very long time, pretty regularly, and so I think, you know, to just kind of step away is something that is beneficial for her, you know. Sorry, I got distracted by the game and lost train of thought.
Lost thought train.
Thought train gone.
Like, to me, at least her situation sounds like it's a little different. Like, one thing if she'd said, I'm going to try and like watch my content in the future, that's one thing. But if she's like cutting off an arm of her profitability, that at least seems like it's a stronger revelation on it.
Yeah,
She
and like,
deleted
to be
videos,
honest,
like They don't make ad revenue?
Yeah, she, well, I don't know if it was deleted, but essentially she privatized all of them, so it should no longer be making ad revenue. And to be honest, she privatized them like forever ago, like years ago. It's just that people who have, you know the ways of the YouTube, like if you're a popular, like, YouTube personality, they'll steal your videos and then post them somewhere else. And so I feel like people found out those videos through other means and called her out for it, not knowing the date of when it was made or when it was taken down, and called her out on, I guess, Twitter. And she decided to, I think she's also a person who takes the criticism to heart, and definitely always like learns from those mistakes. And the takeaway that she got from here was that maybe it's best if I stop creating content, at least for a little bit. And in the video, she said that she's quitting now, maybe forever is kind of the phrase that she used. So there's still a chance that she comes back to creating content again, and just takes a longer break. I don't know if that answered the question. Once again, train of thought difficult to get out of the station.
Thought train, choo choo.
There's body boxes around here.
So yeah, a lot of people kind of took to criticizing cancel culture, in the sense that, like, of all the YouTubers with problematic, like, past and histories, like, Jenna Marbles probably is not one of them.
Yeah, because PewDiePie is still on, right?
I was gonna say there's a certain Swedish individual who's definitely not anti-Semite, who's definitely not an anti-Semite whatsoever.
Yeah, and like in the video, like because I checked Twitter right after the video came out, and like everyone's like, oh, Shane Dawson, Jeffree Star, Trisha Paytas, like these are all people with problematic, like various problems, and they're still creating content and they still have a platform. And yet the one person who tried to, not one person, but the person on YouTube who seemed to be genuinely taking criticism and trying to better themselves and their content, has now taken to heart this criticism and is leaving.
I don't know. I follow Jeffree Star, and he seems to be at least using, whether he's learned from it and moving on, he's using his platform of followers to like share good content for Black Lives Matter, and like he's really using it, whether he's doing it for publicity or because he believes in it, he is using it for the better good.
Did you guys see the Halo Infinite teaser wave file?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yes. Although I have no clue who that group is.
I was gonna say, more importantly, do you understand what that was?
It was a cool waveform.
Yeah. It was red, so that means it's bad or evil or something.
Those were bad guys. Oh shit.
No, I know a little bit about it, but it comes from the Halo Wars 2 game. The Banished are just essentially I think they're a brute-led section of the Covenant, but there are people that were basically left behind by the Covenant, but they themselves became a force that was so strong that even the Covenant wouldn't fight them or even go against them. They just kind of it's like, okay, you guys own that part, we'll leave you alone. We're too busy fighting the humans.
Interesting.
And I think in Halo Wars 2, you... Spoiler alert. Yeah, from spoiler alert, in Halo Wars 2, I think you kill their leader. I'm not sure about that because I haven't played it.
I've been meaning to play the Halo Wars series. Just haven't gotten around to it. Maybe now is a good time so that I understand what the hell's going on.
Honestly, yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's time to play that game for the context.
That and Halo 5, because I also haven't played that, and I feel like
You haven't
that's.
played Halo 5?
Listen, like I really loved Halo 3. I played Halo 4 in college, and then when Halo 5 came out, I was like, okay.
All right, I think
Done.
that should be our next one then. I think that it has been a while since I have made an honest effort at the Halo 5 campaign, so I think that could be our next game that we play through for, or at least for one of these. I think it's a good idea.
Just go through the campaign.
And try not to bitch and moan the entire time.
Yeah.
Oh, but I need to be able to bitch and moan about it for the first time ever. So.
Okay.
On that note, we've been on for about 2 hours. I think it's
Yeah.
a good jumping off point. A lot of heavy material.
Definitely.
New plan for next time. Get on Halo 5.
Thank you very
Well
much
then.
for listening, watching, enjoying, or supporting the conversations that we've had today. I know a lot of it was very rough. But thanks for tuning in.